Hello and welcome to Bosch Professional Live UK. I'm Chris Murray.
And I'm Danny Parks.
Well, it's Wednesday, it's 4 p.m. What are we going to be doing today, Dan?
Right, today we're going to look into laser levels by popular demand. I've had plenty of you people out there asking for us to do a live stream on laser levels. So we thought we'd cross that off our list this week.
Okay, don't forget, it is a live stream, and the most important thing here is we want to get we want to have a conversation with you guys. We want to get your questions in. We've actually got a special guest as well. We've got INKA from Measuring Tools. She's the business manager here in the UK, and she'll be joining us later to go through some of the new products and innovation when it comes to professional lasers and levelers and their innovations for the coming years. So where should we start off with? Well, I think we should make a comment. Obviously, we want you to put your questions in generally about measuring tools. Line lasers as well, but of course Danny and I are happy to answer any questions you've got of any of our professional tools within the range, or maybe you might want to know what's coming out in the future. So feel free to pass questions to Danny and I, and also INKA when she comes in later on in the stream. So how should we start? We should probably start with going on about, well, actually before we do that, we should probably talk about what we're going to be talking about today specifically. We are talking about laser levelers. And there's quite a wide range of products out there. We've got point lasers, cross-line lasers, combi lasers, as well as our 360 or our plane lasers, as well as our rotary lasers. Now that's way too many tools for us to talk about in the little hour that we've got to do this in. So what we're going to focus on are our cross-line lasers and our combi lasers. If we have a bit of time, maybe we'll have a look at our 360s. Otherwise, we might do that in a later stream. So let's stay on schedule. Right, first things first, let's have a look at the insides of these tools, shall we?
Right, so again, you know how I love my little demo pieces.
Absolutely.
So if we can come on to the close-up camera here. This is the internal structure of one of our cross-line lasers. So one of the smaller lasers with the plumb laser built into the top and bottom sections as well. You can see the two laser apertures we've got on the front here. One's a horizontal and one's a vertical. You'll see that later on the front of the machines. The internal structure of the laser itself, if I turn it upside down there, you can see the first movement of the button when you go to turn the machine on removes the transit lock. So if I flip that to one side, you can see the transit lock falls away there. So the two, if I pop it back up right again, you can see the pendulum or the gimbal inside the machine there. That's responsible for finding the level once you put the machine into position. It will self-level within 4 degrees, so you've got a little bit of movement either way on that, and the laser will always find its correct leveling position. There's also built into the back of the machine here a small magnetic damper as well. So what that does is that allows the laser to settle into position a lot quicker. So yeah, quite a complicated little machine there. An awful lot of mechanisms built into that to ensure that it works and gives you the correct level. Yeah, well, it might look straightforward, but there's a lot of engineering that goes into making these tools exceptionally accurate. And as you pointed out there, really quick for you guys to set up on site, get your tripod out, set it up, machine on, and then within, I forgot how many seconds it is, less than what, 5-10 seconds, 5-10 seconds
you're ready to go straight away.
It's important to mention as well with a machine like this, if you have had a laser before and you've sent it in for calibration in the past, this is quite straightforward, done by adjusting the weight on the back of that pendulum. That gives you the ability to change the level there slightly. However, if the machine has been dropped or damaged in any way, it's possible that you may get a report back that it's not calibratable. This can happen, but it's usually down to the fact that these lasers themselves have been knocked out of alignment. Like I said, the weight can be adjusted, but the actual positioning of the lasers can't. Okay, so that's a bit of the how in the insides. Let's have a look at some of the first products. So the first product we'd like to have a look at is one of our, let's call it the entry-level one we've got in the range, and this is the GCL 215. Pop it here. Okay, let's talk about the naming structure to start with. So this is a combi laser, so professional combi laser. The first value is a 2, that's the number of lasers, so you've got a horizontal and a vertical laser, and then 15 is the working distance this tool will work at. So guess what? 15 meters. Yeah. Okay, so that's a 15 meters throw at the front there for the working range of the laser. Now, as it's a combi laser, it actually has a little laser on the top here. So if I just quickly cut to the overhead camera, you'll see that it's got a little window on the top here, and this emits both laser up and down. And we sometimes refer to that as a plumb laser.
a plumb line. Now, when it comes to the working distance of this particular laser, it's 10 meters up and 10 meters down. Now, Dan's made a comment about the fact that these machines are super accurate, and that's absolutely spot on. The main lasers, the two front lasers, the horizontal and vertical laser, they're up to plus and minus 0.3 millimeters per meter, and then when it comes to the plumb laser, that's 0.7 millimeters per meter. So easily within spec, you're going to have no problems. You're going to have very spot-on lines.
You're talking less than the width of the actual beam where it hits the material there. So
when it comes to the self-centering, I think we've said that already, but you've got up to plus and minus 4 degrees of self-leveling, so you don't have to worry about setting the machine up on a tripod. Absolutely spot on. The tool will adjust for you.
Yeah, 4 degrees either way is actually quite a lot. Yeah.
Okay, when we had the GLM presentation, we were talking about machines that have an IP rating down, right? So these machines also have an IP rating.
That's ingress protection. So yeah, the way the ingress protection figure is worked out is it's not a figure that's arbitrarily decided that this is a 52 or this is a 55. It's made up of 2 separate figures. So the first figure refers to the dust rating or the dust ingress protection, and the second figure relates to the water ingress protection.
Okay, so this machine is 54. So 5 being the first one being dust protection, 5 is pretty much almost dust proof. Any dust that would get into the mechanism would have very little effect. So that means virtually, honestly, if you're working on a job site, I think dust is going to be the main problem you're going to have. This machine is well protected against that. When it comes to the water protection of 4, I mean, it's not a device that's supposed to be submersed. It's not going to do very well against high pressure water, but on your job site, you're really going to be dealing with things like rain and some minor water like that. And an IP of 54, this means this machine is pretty much sorted for on the job site. You're not going to have to worry too much about water, unless, you won't be using this in the pouring rain, but even if you were to, you'd be reasonably okay.
Yeah, I think it's a fair investment when people go out and buy this sort of thing. So I think most people will tend to look after it. Treat it with kid gloves. Really, it's a calibratable machine. It is delicate to a certain degree, although they are a lot more robust now than they have been in the past. Yes, I think it's quite a well protected machine now.
Okay, if I was to spin it around very quickly and show you on the close-up camera, there's a warning sign here. Again, just like when we had with the GLM products, the laser measures, these are lasers and these are class 2 lasers. So do be aware where you're pointing them. We're going to make sure that we don't shine them in each other's eyes while we're trying to demonstrate it in a relatively small room with quite a lot of people. But obviously bear in mind, when you are using this on a busy site, you want to make sure that you're not shining that in anyone's eyes because it is a safety hazard.
Yeah, I mean, the natural instinct for a human being is to blink and turn away anyway. So it's fairly safe from that point of view. It is possible to get safety glasses for lasers. However, it's not something that we produce. They are quite expensive, so if you're using them on a daily routine, then it's probably quite a good investment for you. But unfortunately, they have to be spec'd to the actual class of laser. So you need to know the class of laser before you go and buy specialist eye protection.
Don't be fooled by examples like these ones. These are actually work the opposite way. These are actually to enhance the laser, so these will do the opposite. They won't protect you, they'll make it more dangerous, so to speak. So don't be confused. Laser protection goggles are far more expensive than how much these cost you to buy in retail. Right, so let's have a look at the actual tool. Let's switch it on first of all, let you have a look at how the lasers work and some of the controls on it. So the first things first, you can see that obviously the main operation button, or the switch, there's a sliding switch at the bottom here. The first mode, I'll point this way, not going to go in anyone's eye. And you can see this is the lock mode.
That's the transport lock, yeah.
Right, so the laser's on, but the actual self-leveling isn't going to happen. So if I cut to a slightly wider angle, you'll see if I tilt that, you can see it's actually flashing there, but there it stays at a slight angle. Okay. Now if I fully turn the switch completely on, that engages the self-leveling system. So I'll give it a knock. Let it settle, and you can see how quick it is. I said 5 to 10 seconds. That's well over.
Yes,
it's 1 to 2 really.
That's that magnetic dampening in there really slows down the swing of the pendulum and gives you the perfect level.
That's right. If I cut to the overhead very quickly, just so I can show the controls in the back, you can see that the combi laser, the plumb laser, is already activated, and you can see that the cross-line laser is also enabled here. And there are a number of buttons on the back. The first one I'll press is this one here on the bottom, to you guys on the screen, or to me it would be the one on the right-hand side. And you'll see what it will do is it will deactivate the plumb laser. If you don't need it, you want to conserve energy, or you don't want to have just lasers going off in all directions when you don't need it for safety reasons, you can deactivate that. Now, next button I'm going to press is going to be the other main button, but if I cut to camera 2 quickly, I'll show you how that cycles through the different lasers that we've got. Currently, it's here in the 2-line mode, so we've got the cross line. I'll press it once. Okay, it goes to the horizontal laser. Press it again. Okay, and then now you've got your vertical laser. And I press it one more time, switches it off entirely. So press it back on again. There you are, back at the cross-line laser. Okay, so now you can see that the operation's really simple. You've only really got an on switch and 2 main buttons. Okay, so where should we go from there? Well,
I believe it was mentioned in the chat last week, is a good place to go from the red laser would be a green one. Very well received in the market. A lot of people out there who've used the green laser now have said they won't go back to a red one. So it's a big advantage for us to move into. So we have this one here, which is a very similar operation to the red line laser. But however, denoted from the front here, you can see the little the frames around the apertures at the front here showing up as green to indicate that this is a green beam laser rather than a red beam laser.
So this is the GCL215G. So the only real difference we're talking about here is the fact now it's a green line laser. So we can show you, if we go a little wider on our second cam, you can see on the wood there. Now, it's very difficult to show via the stream. So what we'll try and do is I will mount this quickly. I'll mount the previous machine, which was the red line laser, and we'll switch that on as well. It might be hard for you to see on the stream, but trust me, in person, the green is much brighter to my eyes. It does depend on different individuals. Some people may not notice the difference, where others may actually perceive up to 4 times brighter. You might be able to see on the stream there that the green actually does look quite a bit brighter coming through the camera there. But in reality, in real life, especially on long distances, you might see up to a 4 times improvement. Okay, so I don't know what else we could say about this machine other than yes, they've upgraded the laser, so it's green. If you go to the overhead camera very quickly, however, you must point out that the actual plumb laser is still red. Okay, but specification-wise, it's still got a working range of up to 15 meters. The plumb lasers still retain functionality up to 10 meters. And the same plus and minus when it comes to accuracy is exactly the same from the red line laser up to the green line laser. So the working range isn't longer for a green line laser, but it's easier to see. And that's particularly important because as opposed to the laser measurers, which the actual laser is only so you can make sure you're pointing it at the right thing, when it comes to a line laser, actually the line is important. Being able to see where that is actually part of the function.
In fact, having the line, the vertical and horizontal lines working, as well as the red point for the plumb laser, actually shows the red plumb laser actually really clear on the green line. So if you had a green plumb line plumb laser, then you'd lose that in amongst the green, I think.
Yeah, I can see it there. You can't see it on the stream, but there's a very clear red dot right above me there.
Yeah, it's nice to have the contrast, isn't it?
Right, okay. Well, I mean, that's a good introduction to our line lasers. These machines have been the machines, these styles, so to speak, are very familiar to us and probably very familiar to a lot of you guys out there. This is how we've presented our tools for many years. So what I'm going to do now, obviously very important, I'm going to invite INKA on. I'm going to shuffle down to one side and we're going to slide to one side. I'm going to introduce INKA to the stream. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Please introduce yourself very quickly. I think I referred to you as our business manager here in the UK.
Yeah,
measuring tools.
That's pretty much true. Basically what I do, I'm looking after the measuring tools here in the UK, making sure that our sales team has all the information you need and making sure that all your users also have all the information you need, the right communication and everything.
Right, so INKA actually looks after both the HG, so they're also the DIY or the green measuring tools, as well as the professional tools that we're talking about today. And obviously there's a significant difference in both quality, application, but also accuracy when it comes to our professional tools. So it's really good to have you on the stream today, because hopefully we'll get some very difficult questions that we can ask you as well, because that's all part and parcel of the live streams. So the machine we wanted INKA to talk about is, I wouldn't say new, it's not new, but it does mean is a new direction, our latest, and it's the direction that we're going when it comes to our new measuring tools. Is that fair?
Definitely, and especially you guys who've already watched the episode like 2 weeks ago, where Chris and Dan were speaking about the GLMs, our rangefinders, which are also a lot more robust now. The same direction we're going with the crossline lasers, as you can see, also maybe like compared to the products that Chris has shown before. You can see the change of look, the change of design. Basically, we have like a rubber housing that goes all the way around. We didn't have that here. And I'm not saying that the previous products or the products that we have in the range for a bit longer are not made for the construction side or for your job site. Not at all. They're still very, very robust. But we kind of like got the feedback from the market that the tools are not being perceived as very robust. They just don't look it, so people are kind of like scared of taking them out, etc. So we took that feedback on and made sure that on the one side the look is completely different. As I just mentioned, you got the complete rubber housing. You got a bit of a side bumper here, which also like protects the glass where the laser is coming out. Oh, sorry. And then also the recessed glass itself. So if I turn it around like this.
Yeah, if you compare it to the previous one, that it was a little bit more flush, so that if it fell, if it was unfortunate to fall on that side, it's more likely to damage the screen.
The screen,
yeah,
exactly. So here we have the recess, we got the side bumpers, and a rubber housing all the way around. And obviously, having perceived that feedback, we have done a lot more improvement in general, like drop testing, vibration testing, also temperature testing, for example. So there's a lot more improvement that are going into those tools. We're going to have another one later. But the principle is the same. It's the GLL2-15G. So it means it's a line laser with two cross lines with a range of 15 meters. Oh, sorry.
The switches, yeah, the actual slide-on switch has changed a little bit as well. They've moved up on the body.
Exactly, where we also have received the user feedback that the user, you guys only want to use one hand basically to turn on the tool, so I can do everything now with one hand. And also, as Chris showed before, there was like 2 buttons on the top, whereas now we only have 1 button. Maybe if we can have the overhead camera. So here you can see
there you go.
1 button and a battery indication, how full that is. So if I just keep on pressing here.
That's right. If we cut to camera, the close-up camera, and then you'll see being cycled through the different modes. So 1 button operation, there's really nothing you can get confused with at all.
Vertical, and then combined again. Also, again, as Chris mentioned before, green line, this is where the market is going. This is where the trend is going. Everybody wants a green line laser because it is, in most situations, up to 4 times more visible for the human eye, which obviously is very beneficial on the construction side. And maybe then also one last comment on the tool is maybe if we can have the overhead camera again. Thank you. As you can see in here, we got a 1/4 thread tripod thread. It fits on obviously you can have our tripods, so it fits on our tripods, but it can be any camera tripod with a 1/4 thread, every standard camera tripod, which is very convenient, and then you can use it with every application.
Yep. I don't know if you referred to the upscaling of the IP rating from the previous machines to these new machines. It's very similar to when we had the previous stream talking about the GLMs moving to the Generation 2s, and they moved when we did the robustness. We actually improved the IP or the ingress protection. So the previous machines were 54. Now these ones are 64.
64, yeah. So that means they're completely DOS-proof, which also, again, doing user studies, we find out is the most critical point. To make sure that the interior of the laser is also protected and the outside, obviously. So yeah, we got a complete dust protection, and then the 4 stands for like heavy rain. So if you forget to leave if you forget the tool outside one day, it doesn't matter if it rains or whatsoever, the tool is protected against that.
And you made a comment that it's obviously been tested against heat as well. So I mean, we didn't refer to the previous machines. They all have an operating temperature, but because this machine is very robust, it means it works in quite a wide range of temperature differentials. We're talking from -10 degrees all the way up to 50 degrees centigrade. So I know we had our heat wave last year. I mean, that was 4 years. That was pretty high, but this machine's perfectly fine for UK weather. Easy peasy. Same for
no problem.
Yeah, exactly, no problems. And even though it rains all the time here, it's not a problem if you were to leave this out in the rain. Wouldn't recommend it, of course, but
it doesn't matter if it happens.
Exactly. So this is the ongoing trend that we've got in measuring tools in general. Laser measures, combi lasers, etc. They're all going to toe the same line when it comes to robustness.
But obviously, it doesn't harm any accuracy or anything. So they're still as accurate as all of the other products. So even though we're trying to make them as robust as possible, it doesn't matter.
Cool. Okay, so thank you, INKA.
Thank you.
We'll definitely get you back in a minute just to talk about some more
I'll be
stuff.
back.
Or actually, maybe we should stop for some questions, actually, if you've got some, before you go, Inka, yeah. Let's see if we've got any questions.
Yep, we do. William Tell says, quite amazing seeing what's inside. I was using my Bosch green laser only last night for plasterboarding. It's indispensable. No idea how I managed beforehand.
Well, before we go to the next question, absolutely. Later on, towards the end of the presentation, what we'll do is we'll go through some of the typical applications and maybe some of the typical trades that will use these things. Plasterers, absolutely. You know, you're really missing out if you're not using some form of digital laser, either for measuring and or leveling to get your work done accurately. Yeah.
But I'm glad the tool works for you. That's good feedback.
He also said, I've got a Bosch 2-15G. It's pretty decent. The plumb laser is great for matching a spot on the ceiling marked on the floor. Only real letdown is not having a rotating laser for the fairly high price.
Well, we were going to. We discussed at the beginning which products we were going to do and which ones we weren't. We probably might not have enough time to do our 3-line lasers, our 360 lasers, but we'll probably do another stream with just the rotation lasers and our 360 lasers together. You are right. Rotation lasers, they're quite expensive products. They're usually for very, very large applications. We're talking about putting up multi-story buildings and things like that, or leveling big foundation pieces. So, I mean, yeah, there are expensive products, but really, I don't know.
And also, if you think about it, you kind of like working for 2 people here as well. So that's kind of like also worth the investment because you only need 1 person in the end.
Exactly. So it's a lot about smart solutions to save money in the long run. Yeah.
We got some thumbs up from Dan from the Sidings Workshop. Good to see you.
Nice. Always good to hear.
Callum Vaughan, excited for this episode. Is there any of the Bosch laser levels that have a fine adjustment wheel on it?
We have a mount.
Yes.
And then
where you can fine adjust.
Yes.
Also, I know the mounts can adjust the level horizontally, but what about vertically, rather than moving the actual device itself? I think that's what he meant.
We can go up and down. Is that? You mean if you're not talking about tilting? Because I think tilting's something differently, but we do have one that changes this angle as well as the ability to go up and down.
Yeah, we got both.
We will talk about when it comes to the mounts. So maybe if that's correct, we might have an answer for that. Yeah.
And then one from David Swan. I have both the GCL 2-50C with RM and GCL 250GC and find the red line sharper. Is that normal?
Depends on really the conditioning. Often indoors, for example, if you're like very close or have very light conditions, it can definitely be that the red line is sharper. So it really always depends on the conditions. There isn't like one solution fits all, exactly. If that makes sense. It's also kind of like
individuals as well.
Individual, yeah, exactly, like you mentioned it before.
So how typically how the lasers work or how we perceive them, I think we discussed this when we were talking about the GLMs, the laser measurers, the human eye, we can see about 25% of the red spectrum, the light spectrum. When it comes to green, it's 100%. But we're all very different individuals, and sometimes we may or may not perceive that. I always say it's horses for courses. If it works for you, great. Get green. If it doesn't, then it's not. You don't necessarily have to do the investment. But again, it's totally down to how you guys work best. It's also, as Inka says, sometimes down to the lighting conditions. Sometimes you don't get all the benefits of green. Sometimes it's you can't do without the green. If it's as simple as that. So again, it's having green, in my opinion, is always generally the benefit because you're going to get the best of both worlds. Even if personally you might not be able to see it, but lots of other people you might be working with, they might benefit from a green line laser, and more importantly, it's the highest tech version we've got of things. There's sometimes other advantages that are coming with the tool that isn't just the laser, you see. Okay, so Inka, we'll get you back in a minute. We'll get you back for some more questions, but let's move on to.
Thank you.
No problems. Let's move on to the next product. So come on, Dan.
Right, come back on again.
Let's talk about some of the. Right, so 15 meters, not bad. We've gone through all the 3 15-meter machines. What else could we want, eh?
Well, more distance. If you're going to want to work on a larger site, maybe warehousing, anything which is beyond 15 meters, you want something that's going to cast that laser that extra distance and give you the ability to level at a larger distance. Remember, the larger distance, the longer the line. So you can potentially double, triple the length of the line that you're projecting.
Exactly. So what's the first machine up?
Right. So the first one would be the GCL 250. So again, this is a 50-meter laser.
So remember the name. So it's still a 2-line laser.
Yep. It's considerably more distance than than we were talking about with the 15 metre before. There's another couple of advantages with this as well. This is a red line laser, but it is compatible with the LR6 receiver.
Yes.
Which means that just because you're at 50 metres, for instance, you might not be able to see the light. This allows you to read the signal that's transmitted through the light through a frequency, and a receiver will pick it up, allowing you to give pinpoint accuracy for that laser level over that distance.
And that is a very important point to make. So typically in ideal lighting conditions, you might find it very hard to see the light after, what, 15, 20 metres?
Depends what the ambient light's like.
If it's a very bright day, I mean, these aren't designed necessarily for outside, but if it's a bright day and there's a lot of ambient light, you're going to really struggle to see the line laser up to 15 metres. You need to then use an alternative solution to be able to detect that light. Let's go through the machine specs first, and then we'll have a look at the receiver, shall we?
Yes, certainly. So like our other previous 15 metre compound line lasers, we have the two apertures top and bottom for the plumb laser. We've also got the same windows on the front here for the vertical and horizontal. There you go. You see it better that way.
There you go. You can see it nicely there.
Yeah. So this runs on 4 AA batteries, I believe. So again, readily available wherever you go.
-1, 3.
Oh, it's 3 on this.
More efficient than we thought. Yeah.
It's more efficient. Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, the buttons on the back of the machine, it's the same. I think we're on a 2-button setup on the back here as well. So you've got one for turning the pulse function on for the laser, and this one's for selecting the actual lasers you have coming out of the varying apertures there.
That's right. Let's show that in the wide anyway while we're here. Okay, make sure I'm not pointing it into the camera. So we just cycle through the different lasers, just like all the machines. It's the same. It's at least it's a UI that you guys can quite happily trade through different machines. You can go through different machines, and you're not going to have to worry about learning an entirely new interface. It's really simple.
Likewise, if you've got a couple of mates on site that have got similar lasers, you're not going to be confused by the setup of them. They're all exactly the same.
That's right. Something I forgot to mention on one of the previous machines is the fact that INKA made a point about the mounts. These machines have a couple of different mounts. So go to the overhead camera quickly, and I'll show you that some of these machines have a choice. So you've got your normal 1/4 inch, which is, again, as Inka pointed out, that's the typical one you'll have for most photographic gear. It's very easy to get out there. It's usually the standard. It does have a heavy duty one. This is a larger one. This is your 5/8.
So this fits onto the same tripods as you would fit the big rotary lasers as well.
I was going to say that's probably over-spec'd for a machine this light and compact, but we still had it for these models. And as you can see at the bottom here is the down-facing combi laser.
Yeah.
Okay, so just like the previous machines, even though these have a 50-meter throw for the laser in the front, the combi lasers, the plumb lasers up and down, they're the same. They're 10 meters up and down.
Yeah.
This machine has the same accuracy as the 15, so we're talking about your ±0.3 millimeters per meter, and then with the combi laser it's 0.7 millimeters per meter. So again, just as accurate as the previous machines.
It's important to note as well that if you're using a receiver on a machine like this, you have to go beyond a certain distance before it will operate accurately. Do you have any idea what that particular distance is? I think it's about 10 metres or so, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly, and that's the point. That if you won't need it any nearer than that, because you'll be able to see the laser.
Yeah.
At less than 10 metres, even in pretty bright light, you should still be able to see it. However, if you go past that, you need a receiver. Yeah. Right. So let's make a mention about it here. An LR6.
Yes, so this is the LR6. This works well with the red beam lasers that we do that have the pulse function. Very simple to operate. So you'd move away, say you were 15, 20, 30 metres away from the laser. This little aperture on the front here reads the frequency being pulsed down the laser and gives you an indication higher or lower or on target there with the level. And there's also notches out the side of the receiver here, so you can just mark off at the actual level.
That's exactly where the centre is. You mark with the pencil. So there's a button on the right hand side there that some people have often asked, what does it do?
Right. So at this particular one here, if you see the icon, it's probably self-explanatory to a certain degree. Once you get to a longer distance for measuring a laser level, the beam's obviously going to get wider. So you can either switch it for marking the centre of that beam or marking the top and the bottom. So it give you an area to sort of to read from.
Correct.
That's probably
yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. So you said, I think you made a mention. It's if you want to measure the middle,
yep,
or whether or not you want to measure the top or bottom.
Yep.
Isn't it? Yeah, exactly. So you've got the option, depending on your conditions, depending on the light, depending how far away you are, you can select which part of the line you want to measure off. Make sure it's consistent from measurement to measurement.
Exactly. Yeah, and it gives you a good audible indication as well. That's this other button here on the other side is to switch off and on the audible feedback for the level functions.
Now, sorry, I wasn't paying attention while you were talking about that. Did you make a mention of? Did we discuss?
No, I didn't mention it on the back either as well. So you can actually take this laser level and use it away from a wall. The other way around is designed to hold up against the wall to give you an indication of the level. This you can hold freehand, maybe attached it to a pole, so it gives you an idea of height reading. In open space rather than up against the wall.
Exactly, because obviously this part will always have to face the tool because that's what's receiving the laser. You might be stood behind it and you might not know. You won't want to have to look around the machine, potentially blocking the beam to find out whether or not you're on point or not. So you can just look at the indicator. You've got the same indications are on the back there. So you've got all you can work from the other side, no problems. Runs on, there's a couple AAAs. So very easy to find replacement batteries out in the field.
They last ages in these.
Exactly. Okay. So important to know. I think we'll just very quickly go to the overhead camera. That, as Danny pointed out, it needs to be a pulse function. It's not just going to use the normal laser. You need to toggle this feature on. And it's just this button here, and that means once you press this button, this little LED will light up, and that says that this is now in pulse function. That means you're now able to use your receiver.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the GCL 250 and the LR6 in a nutshell. Where should we go now? I guess we'll stay with 50 meters.
Yep.
We'll go to the next machine, shall we?
Right, so the next machine is the GCL 250C. So this is a connected one, I believe. So we're stepping into the connected range of lasers here. Again, it's a compound laser, so we're talking about the plumb laser and the normal vertical and horizontal lasers. 50 meters range, same as the last machine there, except it's got an extra couple of features on here.
That's right. I mean, it's about 20 meters without a receiver and 50 meters with a receiver. Yeah, exactly. But the extra feature is a very important one, actually, which is, well, you're going to go for connectivity, yeah?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I guess one thing you should point out as well, it's got a slightly different battery interface here. So you can see that this one's currently running on AAAs. Oh, sorry, AAs. Four AAs in here. But you can remove this as well as the adapter, and then you could just run your normal 12-volt 12-volt batteries.
Professional range batteries. So anything from our professional power tools range 12-volt system fits straight into this laser as well.
We cut over to the overhead camera very quickly just to show there's only some slight differences in the interface. So this was the previous machine, the 250, and you can see here we've got a few extra buttons. Well, I say a few extra. We've got one extra button, and obviously the main important one is the Bluetooth button, because, as we said, this is a connected tool, so we can connect it to. Well, it's the leveling app now, isn't it?
Yes.
So when it comes to the apps in general, we want to have a presentation where we're going to go in depth with all the measuring tools apps. So we've got the Measure On app, which is for your measurement devices, such as your GLM. We've got the leveling app, which is great for some of these machines, as well as the rotation lasers, so you can do certain things. We'll show that in a minute, but you can control the functionality of the device. So that's great if you're nowhere near it. If it's up on a
If you've got it on a ceiling mount or something like that, you say you're doing suspended ceilings or something, then you can't readily get up there. I mean, the chance if you try and get up there and press any buttons, you're going to upset the level anyway. So it makes sense to have it completely hands-free.
Exactly. And then the final app that we would like to have a presentation on is our thermal app. So those three apps, I think, that's a live stream on its own.
Yes, most definitely.
Exactly. Yes. But what we'll do anyway, shall we cut to the iPad?
Yep, we can do that.
So first things first, I need to switch this tool on.
Let me restart the app here, because I think we've got a bit of technical issue.
That's fine. While you're doing that, if you cut to the overhead camera, and I'll show you how the controls work. Obviously, you've got your normal laser button here. That cycles through the different modes like we have. And then really what you want to do, we're not going to use the receiver, we're just going to press the Bluetooth button. All right, and then you cut to the iPad. you'll see that we're going to just connect to the device. Now, the actual app itself is optimized for a smartphone rather than the iPad that we've got, so it does look a bit unusual. You can run it quite happily on an iPad, but it is optimized for a smartphone because it's more likely to be what you've got in your pocket when you're working it.
Exactly, yeah. So as you can see on the screen here, we've got the top left here comes up combi laser control, so that's the icon that we want. If I press that there, I can switch between the cross-line lasers at the front, so vertical and horizontal, and the plumb lasers that we got going at the moment. You can see that on the top left there. So if I switch to the one top right, just there, that's just the vertical on its own. We've got just the horizontal underneath it on the left there, and then just the plumb line lasers on the bottom right. So that takes into account all of the connectivity, or you can also switch to receiver mode on and off, and just hands-free as well.
Yeah, just to prove that we're just not making up, if we cut to camera 2 very quickly, we get down to cycle through the modes. There you go, magic. No hands.
Yeah.
Okay, and as we pointed out, if that's preset already, or it's up on a ceiling mount, or it's hard to reach, or you don't want to climb, it's an early morning, you don't want to climb that scaffold to get to it, then just get your phone out, switch your device back on, and get back to work.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So the extra functionality of the connectivity really makes it easier for you to work. Okay, so when it comes to the actual device itself, we've already spoken about the fact that it's got all the same bells and whistles as the previous machines, same accuracy. The working range is obviously, as you say, in the GCL 250, 50 meters, good for long range line leveling. Okay,
perfect.
So I'm going to shuffle to one side and we're going to invite INKA back on because we want to talk about another new product. Well, a relatively new product. So I'm going to shuffle along again and I'm going to pass this to you, INKA.
Thank you very much. Yeah, now we have the GCL 2-50G, which is basically a little bit of the bigger model. It's actually the same size, but it's like the upgrade of the GLL 215G that we've seen before. And as you can see, this tool as well, again, part of the robust line range, we wanted to make it as robust as possible. We got, again, all the way rubber housing around. We got the side bumpers, and we also have the recessed glass, which obviously is a lot more protection for the tool, let it be in your van or let it be on a construction site or wherever you have it in your toolbox. It doesn't matter if it's flying around. Again, we got the IP rating 64, so we're completely dust-proof and we're splash-proof as well. And also, we've done all the testing. We've done the vibration test. We have done the temperature test again, as Chris was mentioning before, when it comes to the operating temperature or the storage temperature. The storage temperature, for example, reaches from -20 up to +70 degrees, so that's quite a big range. So that should hopefully be no problem here in the UK for you with those temperatures. We've done the drop testing. So a lot of testing done to make sure this tool is as robust as possible. And again, as with the previous tool, the GLL 215G, the on and off button is on top of the tool, so I only need one hand to actually use it. And then again, also, if we can maybe use the top camera again. Thank you very much. We got, again, one button to operate the tool with the battery indication, if I just turn it on. So you can see here the battery indication, and then we got one button where I can operate all the laser lines. And then the upgrade for this tool is as well that we have plumb points. So we got a plumb point on the top, and we got a plumb point on the bottom. Maybe if so here you can see the outlet. And so you get an additional reference point for whatever application you're doing. And also you can see here again, we got the quarter thread tripod holder. So yeah, whatever tripod you have at home, as long as it is a quarter thread, that's no problem at all. What we've also improved compared to the other tools, this one is running on 4 AA batteries, so you got a longer runtime, for example, especially as it's green beam. This is definitely very convenient.
Yeah, I mean, I think we discussed it previously when we talked about laser tech, that green beam lasers technically are further along on the light spectrum, so they do use a bit more energy.
Yeah,
so it is good that we have an additional battery to compensate for that. So we haven't just, as always, we like to over-engineer our products. We haven't just copied and pasted, stuck a new laser and didn't think about the rest, but we figured we want to maintain that runtime, add an extra battery, but it's super convenient. They're just AA's. You can easily find them
Definitely,
anywhere.
you can find them
not a
everywhere.
problem.
Yeah.
And again, even though it's higher energy, you're still going to get excellent runtime out of the machine. You're not going to be having to change the batteries on the regular.
Yeah, no, definitely. So if I show you real quick, again, turning on the tool, you can see the horizontal laser line, and then if I just press once, we got the vertical, and then we got our cross. Oh, sorry, we got them all off, and then we got the cross. Yeah, so this is like how you can easily control it.
Yeah, if you press it one more time to cycle through all the modes, if we cut to the overhead quickly, and you can see, remember this is now, I believe this is the first one where the plumb points are actually
It's
green.
also green,
so
yeah.
all the lasers are now green. So I mean, if you really want the top end machine and you really want green lasers, this is the one you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've pretty much covered all the machines. So I think what we could do is we could do a quick summary, and then we'll stop for some questions. So out of all the machines, the last machine we looked at was the GCL 250G. Yeah, got to remember it. Got to remember these names they're easy. They roll off the tongue sometimes. The next machine we've got is the GCL 250C. So that's a connected product. It's a combi laser, and up to 50 meters. The other one I've got to double check is I think it's
Something to 50, yeah.
There you go. There's your GCL 250, and then we go to the GLL 250G. That's your 15 meter green line laser, and then we've got the two other combi lasers, both 15 meters, the green, and we've got the red. So you can see it's quite a wide range of choices here.
Wide range, yeah. The 315s, and then we have the 350 that all with a receiver go up to 50 meters. So as a normal application or normal usage, it's 15 meters, and as soon as you use the receiver, either here with those two where you press the button, or the new one actually sends the pulse mode out all the time, so you don't have to press an additional button as for those two, for example.
Good point, actually, Inka. I think we forgot to mention it. I think Danny mentioned the LR6, so that was the one we were talking about for these two models, I believe. Yep, these two models, LR6, they're both red line lasers, so this is a perfect tool for it. But as soon as you step up to a green, thanks, Inka, then you're going to want a different receiver because the green line laser works on a different frequency. You want the LR7. The advantage with the LR7, so it works with the GCL 250G, but it will also work with the 250C and the normal 250. So if I'm being honest, if you haven't got a receiver already, I'd recommend getting the LR7, because that means even if you are running a red line laser, this gives you the option to upgrade to a green line laser without having to change your receiver.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. There are some advantages on the LR7 if I cut the overhead very quickly. Okay, hold on, there we go. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Well, you've got a longer strip, which makes it easier to find the laser, so you start your readings much sooner. And also, we've got a LED screen on the left-hand side here. Right, and that also, instead of it having what we had with the LEDs on the LR6, now you've got an actual screen that will tell you whether or not you're higher or lower compared to, whether or not you're above or below the laser you're looking for. On the reverse side, we've maintained the LED system from the LR6. So you've got the best of both worlds. We've just improved this mechanism, improved this device. And I believe that's running
2 AA batteries.
2 AA batteries. So cut back to camera one quickly. So the LR7, that's an excellent choice of having a receiver that's basically future-proofing yourself.
Yep, it goes for both red and green beam.
Exactly. So let's stop for some questions briefly while I've got INKA on screen, and then what we'll probably do is we'll talk about some of maybe main applications and the kind of people out there, what kind of trades would typically use this stuff, and maybe hopefully what we'll do, even if you are someone within these trades, maybe we'll give you some ideas on you're missing out.
What else you can use it for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's any question, guys. Lizzie, what have we got?
Yeah, we've got a couple. One more from William. Some competitors include one rotating laser on their equivalents to your entry-level lasers. It does make them quite attractive. However, I know with Bosch, I'm buying quality and reliability my priority.
So
well,
is that true? Are there some other people out there that have? It must be quite cheap rotation lasers on top of. Is it?
Well, I guess you can kind of you can kit it as you like, if that makes sense, and if that is a demand. I've seen it before as well. We haven't had a chance to look into that.
So that's a rotating laser as well as a cross line. Or
yeah, that's
something.
the way I understand
Is
it as a kit. No.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. I mean, we're currently going down the more specialised route. So if you want a specific machine to do one thing, then that's what you'll get. Having
Exactly,
combination
yeah.
ones, I mean, if that's what becomes more popular, then I guess maybe that's something that we should look at.
Yeah, definitely.
And then another one from David, actually. The one thing I'd like to see in the future is the ability to keep the lines on permanently in lock mode for working with angles. And then William adds to that he agrees and regularly uses it for angles, and the flashing is quite annoying. I don't understand the point of the flashing. Surely there's another way to fix it.
Yeah. Well, the flashing is a warning to tell you that if the device is flashing on and off, it may or may not come with an audio warning. It's telling you that the tool's trying to level itself, but it can't. But I have heard many people talking about that particular application where they want to lock the device and then tilt it to one side, doing banisters and stuff like that. And I think my understanding is that we don't have a solution for that particular.
It's a bit of a tricky one, to be honest, at the moment, because we get that feedback, and I really appreciate the feedback, and we will definitely pass it on. But we also have had the opposite feedback, where we did have the lock function where you would not have the flashing, but then people forget that it does not self-level anymore, and then obviously you might get a wonky or whatever. Yeah. So that it's a bit of a tricky one, how to actually make sure that everybody gets what they want, if that makes sense.
Okay, so I think we're out of question, which is good. So let's just jump on to the next bit, and then we'll get Dan back in, and we'll talk about a few little extra bits of products. We'll talk about the mounts as well as some of the tripod systems we have out there. So the main question would be, what kinds of applications would we be using these devices for?
Well, I guess obviously we have the horizontal leveling lines when you want to suspend drop ceilings, or you want to mount shelves or cupboards, do some kind of interior decorating, for example. You want to do window installing, or you want to mount a heater. So there's lots of applications for general construction, carpenters, electricians, decorators, as I mentioned. Yeah, that's one of the main applications, yeah. I'd say.
And as I said, and then when you press the mode button, then you'd end up with just your vertical line, and that's going to be things for building framework for drywall. You'd be doing other kinds of fixings, again, drainage pipes, even just doing hanging furniture and stuff like that, as well as mounting doors and windows and things. So again, just like INKA said, when you're using it horizontal, that's for your general construction, like drywalling, that's for electricians and plumbers and joiners and such. When you have the combi lasers, then you get things like plumb point.
Yeah, so if you want to, for example, install ceiling lighting, for example, I mean, you need an additional reference point as an electrician, or again, general construction, or if you want to partition a room with a drywall, that's always good to have an additional reference point.
Or, I mean, it's in the name. If you're trying to run a pipe from ceiling to floor and you want to make sure that it's correct, plumb point, plumb line, exactly. You're running pipes from ceiling to floor, perfect choice, perfect product to do that application. When you've got all the modes on, so you're running both lines, you've got your cross-line laser, that's when these machines come into their own, and that's for things, again, like for room partitionings, again, transferring light mounts, because now you've got a nice center point between the two cross lines, and then things for suspending your drop ceilings and stuff, all the kinds of same kind of things that you're looking for, but again, if you want to level between two angles, even like a boiler install, for example, you'd want to have a cross-line laser to make sure that the boiler's on completely flush, especially things like windows, doors. There's plenty of applications. You guys might already know about them, but for those who aren't aware, there's a lot of versatility. And again, with the 50-meter ones,
if you need a bigger range, if it's not indoors anymore, and you're out in a warehouse or somewhere where you need to up to 50 meters to make sure that it's still level, that's obviously when you then upgrade and get a leveling tool that measures up to or levels up to 50 meters.
Yeah, exactly. So there's plenty, as you see, the range is a large range of products just on this table here with a lot of functionality for you. It's horses for courses, but trust me, there's a lot of different features you can do with these devices. Okay, let's get Dan back in, and let's start talking about, let's talk about mounts. I'm sure you guys are very excited about mounts. But before we go on, let's talk a little bit about receivers, Dan. Come on, Dan.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit more about something, we had some feedback. Sometimes the receivers might not be working, well, not working correctly, they are working correctly, but there are things to consider.
Yes, frequency pollution. I know it sounds really interesting, but it comes when you're dealing with projected frequencies, when we're talking about receivers and obviously the receivers picking up the frequency from the laser. Sometimes we get an issue with LED lighting where frequency has been emitting which interferes with the frequency of the machine that you're using. In situations like that, it's always a good idea to turn off, I know it sounds a bit strange, but turn off the lights. Any LED lighting that you have around. It's fine to use regular light bulbs or even energy-saving light bulbs, but the LED-specific bulbs can cause a strobing effect, which you might see on camera sometimes, that can interfere with the receiver, because at the end of the day, it is picking up on frequency.
Exactly. And this isn't guaranteed. You're not necessarily going to have problems. You might have no problems at all. But this is what we do with the live streams. We want to hopefully educate you guys, give you some tips. If you're having any trouble when using any of these devices with a long-range receiver, that might be one of your causes. It's very unlikely to be the tool or the receiver that's faulty. It's going to be something in the ambient light.
Well, you've got to remember nowadays we live in such a frequency polluted environment, what with smart TVs and all sorts of smart things in the home.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of frequencies being bounced around all over the place.
Yeah, I'm smiling to myself because every time we do any kind of connectivity demonstrations, trust me, especially if we do like events, trust me, whenever I want to connect a tool to my phone, there's about 5 million other devices that are emitting Bluetooth signals that I have to then sift through to find it. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of general high-tech pollution out there, but good comment to make about LEDs, yeah. Okay, so do we want to stop for some questions or should we keep going? Let's keep going. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to very briefly talk about some of the mounts that we have for the devices. I'm just going to move this to one side because there are quite a few and it can get a bit confusing. So I want to make sure that we just quickly go through them and show you some of the advantages you have on the mounts. The first one I want to show you, I believe, is the RM2. Yep, here's the RM2. Okay, so these are designed for the GCL 215s. Actually, I think most of them actually fit on that. Most of the 50s and the 15s will fit on this. It's very straightforward. You just slide it on. Okay, and that's the device on there. And what the main point about this is the fact that you've got a very well damped. I was going to say knob here, adjusting wheel here that allows you to slowly rotate in either direction. So that's excellent for you to, everyone's chuckling.
Remarkably smooth for an entry-level mount there.
Exactly. On the back here, you've got the ability to mount this. These are magnets, which allow you to put this onto any ferrous metal. And then you can see it's got a geared back here, which allows you to also put it onto another one. I think it's a ceiling mount, for example.
Yes.
And then you can basically wheel this whole mount and device up and down.
So as you were talking about earlier, one of the questions about having the lateral movement up and down for the horizontal line, that's possible with this mount and with quite a lot of the other mounts actually. The only difference is we can't do that through a motor as yet. We haven't got a mount that allows for that.
So I wonder if this particular setup, as an example, might be answering one of the previous questions we had before. You've got the ability to change the angle here, and also on the wheel on the back here, you can dial this up and down on the mount if necessary. This particular one's a ceiling mount. So maybe that might be answering one of the questions we had out there. And should point out, these are very strong, I believe they're neodymium magnets. They're very strong.
Yes.
So you can quite happily mount that on a surface. For example, just one of these very thin bits of metal on the back here.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. There's very little metal on the back there, actually. All 4 of those in contact, that's not coming off easily.
No.
Okay, so the next one we've got is an interesting one. We've got the RM3.
This is one of my favourites, actually. There's a couple of ways that you can operate this particular mount. It doesn't have any sort of battery in it. This is an automatic mount, a remote control mount, as it were. There's no power supply in here. This takes the power supply from the laser fitted to it. There's 2 ways of operating it. You can either operate it from the small wheel on the side here, manually.
Yep.
Or also it comes with the remote control, which leads to the other option that you can use, and that is to connect it to the remote control leveling app on your device and control it via that as well. So you've not only got a proprietary remote to be able to use on it, but you can use the app for not only cycling the laser, the beams, but also for adjusting the base as well.
That's right. So it's like the 50C is a good example. Let's pop that on.
Did you want us to try and collect that?
I was going to say, you just use the remote.
Just use the remote, yeah, that's fine. You have to switch it on though.
Oh, yes, sorry. I'll let you do this then.
Hang on, where are we?
Yeah.
There you go.
Obviously, we're in quite a busy studio, so we need to make sure we're not pointing the laser anymore.
Yeah, I don't want to get the laser straight down the camera or anything, but there you go. So you can move it left or right. There's you've got fast movement.
It's still on the overhead, so you can see the controller as well.
Yeah. So there you go on here. It's not so easy to show because it works off infrared. So we've got fast movement here, left and right. The centre buttons here are for a slightly slower movement. And the bottom ones are literally step gears, which is, you can't even hear it.
Yeah, you barely see it, you can barely hear it.
The very, very fine movement. Of course, if you're using this up to 50 metres, that fine movement can be a foot, 2 foot at 50 metres. Yes. So there's quite, you have got a small amount of adjustment that you can do through that as well. So, yeah.
So excellent if you're far away from the device, it's up on a mount, for example.
Yep.
Well, not up on a mount, but it's out of reach. You can quite easily make your changes again. I think INKA made the point about, I think some of the rotation lasers is an example of like working practices. Yeah. You need less people. You don't need to have one person slowly moving the device around. Exactly. You can do this all on your own.
If it's mounted up quite high, obviously the remote works through infrared, so you've got to be within sort of direct line of sight with it. But the connection with the phone app, that works through Bluetooth, so that's got more range and allow you to be at a further distance to operate it.
Correct. Okay, let's keep going because I don't want to bore you, and it's getting up to 5 o'clock already. I can't believe time's flown.
It is,
right, so the other one we've got the RM10. That's a weighty mount. This is typically designed for like the combi lasers, and it's pretty obvious why, because it's got a hole that allows you to put the plumb laser right through the bottom there. What have we got here? It's for the 250G, yeah, the new one. Oh, the 250. Yes.
There you go, for the 250G. So again, slots on, really easy there, and you've got the fine movement on the side, same as you did on the other ones there.
Okay, and then the last one I've got here is the LB10. Okay, now what you might find is many of these actually come in some versions of the scope of delivery. Some of them are optional extras, some of them actually come as part of the package. It depends on what product. Usually the higher price point machines usually get quite a good selection of all the different kinds of mounts. As you can see, this one doesn't require the hole because they're designed for the GLL 215G,
yep.
This one here,
yep.
This machine here. All right, so it doesn't need it. You can just mount it on that way. And then you've got all the magnets on the back, and then you've got the gearing system, so you can put it on a ceiling mount or wherever, and you can adjust it up and down, and then you just mount it how you like, left and right. So it's a much more simplified mount.
That's just the standard 1/4" stud on that, isn't it?
Exactly. So nothing too much to worry about. Okay, so last ones. I think maybe just things like the BM1 mount, for example. So this is
I'm quite a fan of this mount. It's been around quite a long time. It's a fantastic little mount. Folds up quite small. We've got a couple of little legs on the front here just for that added little bit of stability for it. It's also lockable. And once unlocked, you can pitch it up and down as well here. There is, on the front here, people do notice sometimes that the knob here is quite loose. The main reason for that is it doesn't need to be super tight due to the self-leveling of the laser. So it just gives you that extra little bit of ease of movement there. It's not too tight on you.
Exactly, yeah. And the only last few things, we've got things like the ceiling mount, like this one, and this is, as I said, I mounted to, what did I mount it to? No, it's the, where did we put it? Oh yeah, that example.
That one there.
Exactly. So there's lots of different things you can mount it to.
There you go.
No, it's not that one. Where did I put it? Oh, well, the RM1, I'm sure will fit.
Got far too much of a selection.
Well, I mean, this is why I thought it'd be important to do a little presentation on the mounts, because it can get quite confusing sometimes. But example, on the simple RM1 mount, you can just mount it up here. So you get a number of these different kinds of ceiling mount clips.
This one's for the suspended ceilings, really. It's fit onto the lip around the outside of the room and project the line of the suspended ceiling throughout the room. So
that's correct. And one of the last things, keep an eye on the time, is that we've got the receiver mount. So this is good if you are, see a mount on the back here. And then you could attach this to a pole or a staff, especially if you're walking out relatively long distance, especially if you're using like a maximum range, 50 meters and such, then you could have your staff, especially if you're trying to, maybe if you're doing foundation work, small foundation work.
Or even measuring slopes away from things.
Exactly, there, and you could just mount that to a staff and walk past. And that's when we were saying about having the controls on the back, the icons on the back. If you're walking back with the staff, you can see whether or not you're higher or lower. So just a bunch of accessories that I think it's probably worth mentioning, because sometimes we don't spend much time talking about the system accessories, but we thought it would be beneficial for you guys to have a little bit of an understanding. So it's nearly 5 o'clock, so I think I'm going to shuffle along. Let's get INKA back on, and let's see if we've got any final questions. Otherwise, we'll let you have your Wednesday afternoon back to yourselves. So any questions? Are we good?
We've just got some nice comments actually.
It's all good, I have them.
Yeah.
William saying it's really interesting hearing your responses to feedback and see how you're trying to balance different opinions and use cases. Must be a hard job. And then also that he uses his Bosch laser for his day job, stage lighting, rig installation, and also home DIY. I was using it for framing our old cottage and plasterboard it only last night. Cracking kit.
Oh, that's
That's
awesome.
right.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Glad you enjoy it.
And then David said the reason I have both red and green is to use them with converging beams to find vertical flatness, the same principle as the now discontinued Bosch floor surface laser GSL2.
Remember that
good,
one?
yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I think that's perfect time. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. It's hopefully been very informative. It's been excellent having you on the stream as well,
Thank
INKA.
you
I
for
really
having
appreciate
me.
having someone of your experience on with us. So more importantly, so you don't have to listen to just me and Dan and go on about it for an hour.
Yeah.
It's always good having extra people on. That's what we want to do with the live streams. We want to get other experts, because trust me, there are a lot of excellent people that work for Bosch here at Denham, and we want to get their expertise in and have a chat with them and let you guys ask questions directly to some of the experts here. So I think the next live stream we're going to have is in a couple of weeks. We might do it on heated jackets and maybe some lighting systems.
Yep.
We'll see. We're trying to decide whether or not that's where we want to go. Remember to like and subscribe. So we're going to be on our YouTube, Facebook, and our Instagram.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's a couple of minutes past 5, so thank you very much. If I don't see you before Christmas, have a lovely Christmas, but hopefully we'll see you, I think it's on the 21st of December.
21st, yeah.
All right, okay, so thank you very much from myself.
And for me too.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.